And the big story on the continent, the Supreme Court in Kenya ruling out foul play in the recent elections that saw William Ruto claim victory. This comes after runner-up Raila Odinga challenged the results, saying that they were rigged. Chief Justice Martha Koome said there is no evidence that the results have indeed been tampered with. Odinga says he respects the court's ruling, even though he disagrees with it. Let's unpack the story. We're joined by Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation. That's at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Westen Shilaho joins us via our video link this morning. Dr. Shilaho, it's great to have you with us on the program. A decision that was made by a unanimous verdict upholding Ruto's victory in Kenya. Were you surprised by the unanimous part of that?
Morning, Michelle. Morning to your viewers. I wasn't surprised at all because I followed this election quite closely. And I was convinced that the electoral body had conducted credible elections, contrary to what some cynics were expecting, given the history of disputed elections. These elections were unusually transparent. Mm-hmm. Kenyans could see what was transpiring, the voting, the tallying, and the results. They're open for all to see and check and verify. And therefore, when the losing side, Raila Odinga specifically, petitioned the results and went to the Supreme Court, I was waiting to see the evidence he would adduce, to back up the claims he was making about vote tampering, William Ruto, the president-elect, not having met the 50% plus one vote, and all sorts of allegations about, actors from outside Kenya, having access to the transmission of the votes and all those kind of that evidence. I didn't see it even when the matter played itself out, before the Supreme Court. I did not see that evidence, and therefore I wasn't surprised that it was a unanimous ruling upholding President-elect William Ruto's victory.
But Dr. Shilaho, there were those electoral commissioners who, and a number of them, I think it was 5 of them, who tended to agree with Odinga.
Yes, there were 4. There were 4 of them, dissenting commissioners. And therefore, Michelle, it's important to have some background information about these 4 commissioners. These 4 commissioners were appointed a year ago, last August or September, thereabout. So they haven't been part of the Electoral Commission for a long time. And they were appointed during what is referred to Kenya as the handshake government, when the outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta and his former rival, bitter rival Raila Odinga turned ally, were having some kind of informal government. That's when these 4 commissioners were appointed to join the electoral chair and the 2 commissioners and the CEO of the electoral body. And therefore, looking back, some Kenyans are seeing that they had expressed instructions on what to do within the commission, because the justices asked this question, that at what point did they realize that the chair of the commission was acting unilaterally? At what point did they lose confidence in the chair of the commission? At what point did they realize that the process was opaque, the word that has featured up, and that the results that were coming from the polling stations were not credible? At what point? And that question was not satisfactorily answered. And then in the absence of a satisfactory response to that question, the dispute and factions within the IEBC, that's the electoral body, was politically engineered. That conflict was politically engineered. And that's why the petitioners, and Raila Odinga to be precise, really latched onto that division, the fact that 4 commissioners broke away and rejected the result that had been declared by the chair of the electoral body.
So what happens to these 4 electoral commissioners?
Well, Michelle, that's a good question, because for the longest time, Kenyans have cast their votes, and then some shadowy characters think that they can interfere with the will of the people of Kenya. And therefore, going forward to, put an end to this kind of behavior, I think there'll be need for an inquiry to find out what exactly transpired. Because other than these 4 commissioners, the chair of the electoral body saw affidavits before the Supreme Court revealing that senior government officials within the security apparatus, from the office of the president, the police, the intelligence, the defense, visited him at night and tried to prevail upon him not to declare William Ruto as president-elect. Or if he could not do that, he moderates, that's the word, that he moderates results so that there's a runoff, and he refused. So there has been this culture of impunity around elections in Kenya, whereby after the electorate has cast their votes, powerful individuals, power brokers, think that they can influence the commissioners within the electoral body, they can influence the chair of the electoral body to declare somebody Kenyans didn't vote for as their president. And therefore it's important that this kind of behavior is brought to a halt, and those who engage in that kind of behavior, because it's criminal according to the law, are held to account, so that people who are appointed to national bodies and institutions take their responsibility seriously. Because had the chair of the electoral body not stood his ground, Kenya could very easily have dissolved into violence.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a country that has a history of election-related violence. Given this decision now by the Supreme Court, Dr. Shilaho, might there be still, even though there's been this unanimous decision, might there still be some sort of fallout from at least the side of people affiliated to Odinga?
Oh, yes. There is discontent from Odinga's side. Odinga himself has accepted the verdict, but he doesn't agree with it. His running mate has also released that kind of statement, and therefore their supporters, and they've got quite a substantial support within the country, are taking cue from them, and I don't think they agree with the verdict, and therefore the country is divided. William Ruto, the president-elect, has that responsibility of uniting the country, delivering to all, irrespective of political affiliation, ethnic origin, class, and those kind of things. And he has really captured those things in the speeches he's made ever since the results were declared. But whether this discontent and bitterness and polarization could snowball into widespread violence, I don't think. I don't think. Kenyans, quite a substantive fraction of the population has realized that some politicians can be fairly cynical. The matter was adjudicated before the Supreme Court, and political actors pledged to respect the verdict. The verdict has been rendered. So anybody who will want to incite Kenyans, I don't think they'll be doing themselves any justice. They'll be on the wrong side of history, and they will not succeed. The country is prepared to move forward.
Yeah. As you say, it is up to President-elect William Ruto to do the job of unifying the country now in the days and weeks to come. Dr. Westen Shilaho, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation at UJ. Thanks very much indeed for weighing in on that story.